Coming up on today's show, we are celebrating fathers. Join us for a special Father's Day edition of Wake Up Well. Hello, darlings, and welcome to Wake Up Well. I am your host, Portia Scott, and you are joining me for a very special edition of the Wake Up Well show. We are celebrating fathers and just the men in our lives that are showing up. I want to wish a very happy Father's Day to my husband, the father of my 3 children. I want to wish him a happy Father's Day, as well as my own daddy. I just want to say happy Father's Day, but I also want to say happy Father's Day to every man that is part of the Wake Up and Show Up community. We see you, we appreciate you, we love you. You guys are really the epitome of what I think about when I think about fathers that are leading, fathers that are loving, and fathers that are leaving a legacy. Hello, 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 Zetta. Hello, darling. How are you? Jasmine, I saw you on Hello, darling. You guys know how we do it. I want to know what you're grateful for in the comments. Let me know what you are grateful for. What are you grateful for? I know a lot of us are grateful for our fathers, the men that have stepped in our lives to be fathers. And so I want to make sure that we know what you're grateful for. So while you're in the comments, let us know what you're grateful for. One way is that also lets us know that you're out there. But listen, I want to let you know something. So if you want to see your comments, if you want your comments to be read, if you want to interact with us, I need you to hop on either to our Facebook page, which is I Am Portia Scott. It is the page. And or you can hop over to YouTube, which is Portia Scott Media. That way we will see your comments. We will be able to interact with you. So yes, we are live on my personal profile, but we are moving over. And so the way that we're doing that is that in order to interact with us, in order for us to see your comments, we need you to be on the Portia Scott page, which is I Am Portia Scott. You will know it's my page because I'm doing this. My famous pose. And also, if you want to, you can also watch us on YouTube at Portia Scott Media. So while you guys are putting in the comments what you're grateful for, there's something that I want to say. I am grateful for you guys. I'm grateful for this community. Last year, in the middle of a pandemic, you all showed up. And the way that you showed up was that you helped me as an ambassador to the Caring for Girls organization. We were able to raise money for girls to keep them in school. It's estimated that girls will miss about 51 days of school just because of their menstrual cycle. And this organization is located in South Africa, and they are keeping girls in school. And the way that you guys were able to keep girls in school was with your donation. And I want to show you a little bit about what you have done. With that money, we were able to raise $1,811. And to some, you may say, well, that's not a big amount. But let me tell you, we were able to raise that money in less than 2 weeks. And that is huge. But not only were we able to receive that, but we were able to facilitate the logistic support of Louisville Combined School in the Mpumalanga province of South Africa. But listen to this, a total of 339 girls benefited. They were supported with 1,596 packets of sanitary pads, or that would equal 12,768 single sanitary packs. And so these were donated through the annual hashtag Million Comforts campaign. You guys did that. So what you all did was not just donate your financial resources, but you were able to essentially change the school year for a young girl. And this school is a farm school. And so it's in the rural areas, and it's very hard for their families to work. And they were really hit hard by COVID. And this was the school that we were able to impact. So I want you all to give yourselves a round of applause. And I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for supporting not me, but supporting and impacting all of those girls, 355 girls. So, you guys, I cannot thank you enough. And I wanted to show you this because the director, the CEO, and founder of this great organization, Robert Mbasso, he sent it to me. He was super excited about it. He wanted to make sure that I shared with you all so that you knew what you have been able to accomplish. Every little bit counts. It was $20, was able to help one girl for the full school year. So thank you. This is what Wake Up Well is about. This is what the brand is. If anybody asks you, it is about impacting. It is about impacting one person at a time with one story at a time. So, you guys, listen, I know you guys have been telling me what you're grateful for. I want you guys to welcome, I'm never alone. I am always with our resident co host, our mental health hygienist, Marty Sellers.
Hello, darling. How are you?
Hello, darling. How are you?
I am doing amazing. I had on all my Father's Day gifts. So, yes, I got my shoes on, had my hat on, everything. Had my grill. You name it, I had it on.
Happy Father's Day, Marty. Happy
Thank
Father's
you.
Day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, you know what I'm going to, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm saying, you know what? Thank you for sharing that post, because too often what happens in our communities, we give, but we never get to see the results. So that brought such warmth to my soul and reminded us the importance of giving. And as you said, every little bit helps. And to see that many young ladies were impacted by that, my heart is overwhelmed with joy. And for me, I'm grateful for that. My children have everything that they need, but to see something as simple as sanitary napkins that can change the lives of these young ladies, it just does my heart well. And I praise God. I praise God for you. I praise God for the gentleman who organizes this. But more importantly, we praise God that these young women are definitely impacted in a positive way in order to make an impact in their community in which they live. So thank you, Portia.
Thank you, Marty. Val said, Happy Father's Day, Marty.
Thank you, Val.
Happy Father's Day. So, you
Yes.
guys, this is really a special Father's Day edition. I am actually sitting back, but I'm going to introduce our panel for the day. And then we get the opportunity to hear from these amazing men, these amazing fathers, have this discussion around fatherhood, around what it means to be a daddy, and so much more. Make sure you have your questions. Make sure you go grab your husband, your brother, your son, your daddy.
Uncle,
Make
anybody.
make sure they are on here. Your godfather, your
Yes.
grandfather, make sure
Yes.
they are on here to hear this conversation. And we want you guys to be a part of this conversation also. And you can do that in the comments, but you have to go over to my profile page, which is I am Portia Scott, or our YouTube page, which is Portia Scott Media. And it's my profile page because I'm doing this. You got to
I
let
love it,
people know.
Portia.
So the first person that I am going to introduce is no stranger to the show. He is essentially our resident house guest, and we're going to ask him to come up. It is John Henry Scott the Third.
Hey, everybody. Good day to you.
Good
How's
John
day to
Henry.
you
everybody
as
doing?
well.
John Henry, I just want to say happy Father's Day, my love. I know I've told you already, but just want to make sure that I publicly do it and publicly say it, how much you mean to me, being the father to our children. It is just crazy. Today, Maddox and John, when we got back from church, they were spending Father's Day watching this show about, it was about, what was it about?
Traveling.
Exotic areas or something, exotic resorts. So that's how they spent it. And that is really the essence of how he fathers and who he is
Wow.
as a dad. So I love you so much. Thank you.
Love you. Thank you.
Um, and then I'm going to bring up our next guest. And what I want to do is, I do want to hear what you guys are grateful for, but I'm going to wait for the guests to get up here. I'm going to get out. Marty, you take it away with the what are you grateful for with our guest? And then you guys can get started with the show. So our
Awesome.
our next father is coming up. He's actually not a stranger to the show, well, the Wake Up Well show, but he was a guest on the Wake Up and Show Up podcast talking about PTSD and how he is changing the acronym for that word. He was also on the Wake Up and Show Up live show. This is my best friend, and I loan him out to John Henry Scott every now and then to be his best friend, but he knows who his real best friend is. But no, him and John Henry have been best friends for a long time, and as long as I can remember, Thomas has just been an amazing person. His birthday is in September, so I wouldn't expect anything less. But not only that, but I have seen him father, and there is no doubt about it that if there is one title that he is absolutely in love with, it is the title of father. He is a father to his 2 girls, and now he has a son coming in to the family that he is also being a part of raising that young man. And so let me tell you something. He is an amazing dad. He's an amazing person. I'd like to bring on Thomas P.E. Shipp.
Hey everybody, how y'all doing today?
Hey Thomas.
How y'all doing? I'm looking around. Who's she talking about? Something about me?
Yes. So happy Father's Day. Oh, Dr. Marty, Pastor Scott, love your strength for your families.
Oh, thank you, Liz. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you guys, I'm going to back off. I'm going to listen to the show. Take care and happy Father's Day.
Thank you, baby.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's start off like Portia says. What are we grateful for? You know, Mr. John Henry Scott III. What are you grateful for today?
You know, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, and it would just be a travesty for me not to really just acknowledge the fact that I am so grateful for the gift of being a father, and specifically having done this for almost 25 years. I'm so grateful for each of my children, all 3 of them. I love the fact that I get an opportunity to see just a little bit of me in them as they grow and as they develop their own rhythm. It's just it's a weighty responsibility, but there are some moments when you get to push pause and look back and say, you know what, I didn't screw this up. You know, so I'm very grateful for my children, for my 3 children today, Jontel, Miracle, and Maddox.
Now you've known John Henry way longer than I have. He says, get to see a little bit. You know, that the eldest son of yours is your twin.
That's true.
Exactly.
That's true.
That's all I say. Oh my God, they're twins. They're twins. Tell us, here we go. You know, the baker and the cookie expertise himself. Oh my God, I can't wait to get these cookies out here to Cali. Because brother, let me tell you something. Mrs. Fields ain't got nothing on you.
Not a thing.
Not a thing. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
When we talk about, since we're talking about Father's Day, how you can support Black-owned businesses is supporting this brother right here. What are you grateful for?
I am grateful for being the world's best dad. I'm just, I know some of us got on here with a hat on, new shoes and everything, but you ain't got no trophy.
Is this how we doing it?
I'm just saying. I got a trophy.
Don't play with me now. You got a trophy. Yes.
This ain't first place.
I love it.
This ain't first place.
First place.
I'm dropping. Don't tell them. Don't tell them.
Listen, brother, I appreciate you. That's right. What I love that we as fathers do, listen, if our kids gave us a paper tie, we would be just so proud of it.
Yeah.
And fatherhood is so much, you know, John Henry, you know, I was a young father myself. My daughter is downstairs. And I hope she's listening to the podcast right now, because she's just saying that she said, I made you a father. I'm like, really? Yeah, she still swears that she's the favorite, and she lets them all know this whole thing. But you know, being a young father, you know, I didn't get it right. I was learning, and constantly she says I experimented on her and that they got the better side. Don't tell anyone, I used to have a little peak when I could grow hair. And she goes, you know, I had the peak dad. Y'all got the bald dad. So that's a whole different. But when we look and reflect about the memories of fatherhood, What stands out most to you? First, John Henry, and then Thomas. I'll throw it to you both there. What stands out most about this whole memory and joys of fatherhood?
Oh man, I'll jump in there. I can go all the way back to 1996. Or I can
Okay.
go just a couple weeks ago, right?
Right,
And I
right.
think about each child. I want to talk about my oldest son for a minute.
Yeah.
And we had this moment. He just got out of the Navy, having served this country for 5 years in
Right,
the U.S.
right.
Navy. He just got out and moved into his first apartment in Arizona. He's going to finish up his degree there at the University of Arizona. I was on a business trip there in California, and I flew after work to be in Arizona with him just for 2 days. I didn't have a lot of time. I think I spent one full day and a half a day there with him. And there was this moment where I was feeling it, but he actually said it. We were going through his apartment, and I think we had went and bought him some plants, and we put in this plant together. And he was so excited just for his daddy to come to his apartment and to see his apartment. And he had everything all right. He put me up in his loft, gave me his bed, and gave me like the royal treatment.
Right.
And then that next morning, I got up and I made us some espressos. And he said, "Daddy, look at this. Look at this. Did you ever imagine that we would be here?" And what he was referring to is, although he didn't remember when he was just an infant, and I was getting on the bus with him in South Central Los Angeles, getting on the 16 line, driving down 3rd so I can get to the Beverly Center and push my baby around a different environment so that I can expose his mindset and my own mindset to know that we didn't have to get stuck in the season that we are in right now. But one day, we'll be able to look back at that moment back in 1996 and 1997 and know that, you know what, if you work hard, if you trust in God, if you stay present, if you stay committed to trying to do what you don't really know how to do, that it'll work out. So we had that moment when I went to his apartment in Tucson, and he said, "Daddy, look at us. Look at us. You were 16 and now he's 24 and I'm 40. And when all the odds were stacked against us, we were able to sit there, having navigated through so many different seasons of life, and be like, wow, God is faithful." And we didn't quit and we didn't give up. And so that's one of the memories that is at the forefront of my mind, is just this resiliency. Sometimes to just to keep showing up, no matter what, is to keep showing up.
And that is so key, you know, the role of fathers. I think we put it too much on ourselves. And Thomas, I don't know if that was you. When I was a young father, I thought I had to buy everything and get all of this, but it's not the quantity of money that they remember, but the quantity of time that you spend with them. Thomas, talk to me about what's impacted you, about when you're looking at this span with your children.
I'm gonna go back to what you just said in time. One of the things that I adore most is time with my kids. As the panel may know, that I just retired from the military. So when my oldest daughter was born, Malia, she was born, and then like in 2013 and 2014 December, I was going to Kuwait. So going to Kuwait, coming back, and when I came back from Kuwait, it was because my other daughter was being born.
Okay.
So I missed her birth by 1 day. So me coming home, and my daughter, Melanie was in the hospital. Malia, it took her a couple of seconds to recognize me. So I crawled over to her on the floor and I let her come to me. And my sister recorded the event, and she just looked at me for a second, even though I FaceTimed her every other day while I was in Kuwait. But how she looked at me, and then she just fell into my arms, and we both, I know I was crying, you know. So just with her falling into my arms, then, you know, the military, I had to go back, because I only came back because my youngest daughter was born. I had to go back. And when I came back, even though it was a couple of months, she looked different.
Yeah.
Because she was just growing.
Yes.
Then, being in the military, I went to Kuwait again. So I went to Kuwait a couple of times. So that's one of the things that I try to give the kids, my kids, and my bonus son is time and being there. Because for just periods of time, I'm in Kuwait and I'm just away from them for a while. And that's why I'm here now, closer to them, just so I can father them and be in their life, because I didn't have that growing up. My father wasn't there. And I know that that's one of the most important things that you can give your children is your time.
Wow. I love that. You know what, if I can jump there, Marty, I was thinking about something. There's this thought that I have is that we tend to live in a culture that really pushes giving presents. ENTS. But what I've discovered is that the presents diminish in value without our presence.
Yes.
Right. And so when we're able to add our presents and then add the present, we don't have to sacrifice the presents in order to try to go give more expensive, more extravagant presents, because Maddox is through the roof because daddy was just there. And so then now, if I cannot go and buy him a $20,000 gift, I give him the gift of my presents. And so then now I can spend $2, you know, and it will have significant value. And I think that that's something that I've discovered parenting for the last 25 years, is that presence has much more value than presents.
What if we were able to teach that philosophy to a lot of blended families, to those fathers who are not living in the home, but feel disconnected, by saying, listen, father, it's not about the present. Yeah, you're paying your child support, and sometimes you may get behind, but don't not show up in that child's life because of your own embarrassments. I've had some embarrassing moments. I think we all have, you know. John Henry, you know, I had just graduated from college, didn't have a job yet. I was washing cars, interviewing from 8 to 12 and washing cars from 1 to 5 so I can buy Pampers and baby food and all that, because I wanted to have an active role in my daughter's life. And Thomas, I get it, because I was in law school at the top of when my daughter was born. And so it broke my heart because I didn't have the money. So I did not get to see my daughter until she was 4 months old. Oh, wow. And so it just broke my heart. But in that, I was like, am I making the right, you know, I went through that. Oh, am I making the right decision? Am I doing this because I wanted to provide a better future for her in that, you know, and God has a way with balancing everything out in life. But in that, I never wanted to be that stereotype of a deadbeat dad, the dad that was never in her life or anything like that. So I think, you know, too often we battle those challenges of being young fathers, of being single fathers in many cases. And then when we get the opportunity, and Thomas, I heard when you said the bonus son, I have a bonus daughter by the name of Tony, who I got to adopt, who was my family member. And I know, John Henry, hearing yours and Portia's story, Portia said she's got a bonus son, and that we don't treat them any differently than our own children, because again, we show up equally in their lives as well. Wow. Powerful. Powerful.
You know, I love for Thomas to speak to that, because you do a tremendous job, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on the show this evening, in terms of having the dynamic that many fathers have, where husbands and wives, for some reason or the other, either the marriage may not work out, but that doesn't necessarily mean that just because the marriage doesn't work out, that your absence as a father is now justified. And you do a tremendous job, really, just with your girls. So in lieu of what Marty just asked, what would you say to some of the fathers out there, you know, who may the marriage didn't work out, and they are still, you know, struggling with being present in their children's lives? How do you do what you do? What goes through your mind? What drives you to do that? I've seen you drive 8-9 hours round trip just to show up for your kids for a half a day. I've seen you fly to Alaska to spend a few days with your children. I've seen you do this over and over and over. And so how do you do that?
It's hard sometimes. And how I do it is just the love that I have for my kids and being there and knowing what I didn't have growing up as it was my father, my dad, or whatever you call him, dad, daddy, father, whatever you call your biological dad. I know what I didn't have. So you learn from bad mistakes. You learn from good mistakes, and that's one thing that people always see, that you learn from people's good leaders and things. But you learn from bad mistakes too, and you learn from bad leaders.
Right.
And I knew that, and this was one of the things that really touched me also when I was going through my divorce, was the word, you're gonna leave your family. And that's what was, what was echoed, that what was keep being said. And I'm like, I'm not leaving my family, I'm not leaving you, we're just not good together.
Right.
But I'm never leaving my kids. I'm never divorcing my kids. I'm always going to be there for them. And now that I do have a bonus son, I'm going to be there for him also.
Come on, man. Come on.
And with my bonus son and just growing and learning and loving on him, he didn't know what to call me at first. He didn't know what to say or how to address me. So in the beginning, it was, my mom said this, or can you help me with that? So we sat down, we talked to all the kids, and we told them that it's okay for them to call us what they're comfortable with. And what the girls are comfortable with calling Tamika, my fiance, is Mama T. So they call her Mama T. So there's a difference. They know that they have their mother and they have their bonus mom, it's Mama T. And for Ryan, he started off calling me. She was like, we sat down, he was like, I'm calling you BD for bonus dad. But that was short-lived. And, and he come running and called me, Daddy, can you help me with this? Daddy, can you help me with that? So, and I think it's easy for him too.
Yeah.
And it's because of what John just said. Just because Tamika and his father isn't together, I think today, on Father's Day, probably has been the first time I've seen him reach out to Tamika to have Ryan call him. So that part-time stuff, I don't like it. So being a part-time dad, with the courts and everything, I get what the court says, every 2 weekends in the summer, and you see fathers, they get their 2 weeks in the summer, and right, going back. I fought for 2 months, so I get 2 months in the summer. I get the entire summer with my kids, and I love every minute of it. We got our garden outside, where they all go out and help plant something, and they go out and help water it. Just being there with them, and just showing them love is the biggest thing that you can give them. Especially, I'm thinking that it was going to take some time with me and Ryan, and it was very short-lived for him to call me BD or bonus dad. So now, he was the first one to give me a hug this morning, and came in and gave me a hug and kiss. I'm like, what my kids at? Well, he's my kid too, but but that was it. It's just showing them love, and they reciprocate.
I love it. But Thomas, I think that speaks to how you were intentional about forming the relationship, whether your bonus son knew it or not. Ryan, that's his name, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Whether Ryan knew it or not, you were intentional with making sure that he was comfortable and saying, listen, what do you feel? See, you didn't come in there judging, you didn't come in there demanding. You're saying, listen, we both going through a transition. What do you want to call me? And I love it because you said the BD was very short lived till it became you went from BD to daddy.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a message right there. You get me all emotional. I'm trying to hold back and I'm trying to man up on this Father's Day call. But this number one dad. Man, I love it. Because that shows you said, listen, I care enough to want to know not only what you're thinking, but how you're feeling.
Yes.
And together we're going to navigate through that.
Yes.
I love it.
Beautiful.
I love it. You know what, Thomas, this is going something. There's some questions coming up, but I want to throw this question out to the panel before we start getting to some of the questions while I have my mind, because there's one question that's going to choke me up a little bit. So I want to get to this one here. There's an African proverb that says it takes a village to raise a child. And often within our communities, we tend to, give that responsibility to the mothers, to the aunties, to the big moms and things like that. But since it is Father's Day, I would like to hear from you gentlemen, if there is truth to that African proverb, which I believe that there is, that it takes a village to raise a child. Who has been your village, either directly or indirectly? Who's influenced you as a father? Who is your village that has really helped shape the way that you show up for your children? Let's start with you, Marty.
Yeah, I have. You've heard me share my three best friends, Brent, Vindon, and Steve. And I know that during those times when I was even struggling with being a father, when I was about to go off on the deep end, when I was, it's like, you know what? Listen, you got to deal with them. My village I've been able to call these three homeboys of mine. And I'm like, I need y'all to show up like right now. And they have been dropping everything they have to support me and to even be like, listen, let me talk to Christian. Let me do this. Let me support you. Or even to correct me and be like, okay, I heard you, but Marty, you are wrong in this situation. You need to listen to your son. You need to listen to your daughter right now. And I go with this. The village is also wise counsel.
That's right.
To give us that counsel we need. There were times that I was hurting, and Thomas, I've gone through a divorce myself, and so during those times, I felt like a failure as a father, and I needed them, and I was hurting, and oh my God, okay, pull it together. There were times I slept in my own son's bed just because I missed him that much. And no one ever talks about the hurt of a father during a divorce. When I was used to seeing him every day and used to kissing him every morning and used to putting him to bed at night. And now when the courts say you have every other weekend, I'm like, I'm not a part-time dad. I don't care what you say. I'm a full-time dad, and there's nothing that you can say. But they say, well, you get him every other weekend and every Monday. I said, so you're saying that I only can get him for 7 days out of a month? That's not me. And finding ways to show up. And so for me, that village has been my three best friends. That village has been in many cases my pastor at times. That village has been my mom at times, just to kind of talk me off the ledge or when I'm needing support. And now with my bonus daughter, my village has been my business partner. My village has been her two godmothers that come along and support me with that, because at 50, almost 55, I'm not supposed to start this game all over again. Listen, but I have a village. And so John Henry, I totally agree with it. It does take a village, and Big Mama and all them could tell us what to do, and Sister Bradley from the church and all those. So I love the village concept, but we have to get those that we trust, who have our heart, but more importantly, have the faith of God, that their interest is going to be for our children as well.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
Wow. I'm gonna go and like Marty said, going through your divorce and being there every day, with your kids,
right?
And I'm gonna be transparent on here. So when I was going through my divorce, I was also on my way to Kuwait, and I went to, we had already been going through ups and downs and stuff like that, but my grandmother had passed like as we was going and at the beginning phase of our divorce. And, she had people to pass away in her family. And I was there with her by her side, even though things weren't good. So when my grandmother passed away and things weren't good, I'm thinking that she's gonna, come with me. And I asked her, and she kind of said some things to me and didn't go to the funeral with me. And when I came home from the funeral, she had moved out, and I didn't know where her or my kids lived. So for that month, before I go to Kuwait, I didn't know where my kids lived.
Right.
But I was still daddy and doing everything that I was doing before.
Right.
So she would take them to daycare and I would pick them up.
Right.
So I would pick my kids up from daycare, go to my friend's house where I was living before I go to the Kuwait, feed them, get them their bath, put them in the bed, and then she would come and pick them up from me at my friend's house and drive back to a destination I didn't know where my kids lived. Then go to Kuwait, and within a month of me being over there, my oldest daughter got injured. Something that would have never happened while I was at home. And me not being there with them. And I had to just suck it up and keep going because I'm in Kuwait, I'm in the military. You can't show your vulnerabilities. You can't show that things are going on at home. So I put my smile on. I go to work. I'm in Kuwait. I'm sipping hot tea like everybody else. But then from October to probably January, February time frame, I just went to work and went to my room. I didn't do nothing. I didn't go and do anything and hang out with anybody. So when you said, when you first went through it, that's kind of what I went through in the beginning stages of my divorce. But I still FaceTime and I call my kids.
That's right.
Like every day, every other day. The time difference, me waking up at 4:30 in the morning in Kuwait.
Right.
And FaceTiming my kids every day. And then she get deployed. She ended up going to Alaska. So she leaves my kids with my sister. So my sister is a big part of my village. So we're going back to the village, to the question at hand.
Right.
Your village. My sister was the village because she stayed 30 minutes away from us in Texas. So my oldest daughter, first time getting on the bus, my sister put her on the bus, and just doing a lot of that stuff. So my village, raising my kids, mostly have been me calling, talking to John, me calling, talking to other friends. But my sister, the one that lived right there in Texas, she was there when both of my kids was born. And then a year or two ago, 19, I think, we had to go back to court because she wanted to take my sister off because if something happened both ways, my sister was the guardian of our kids. If something happened to her, that's on our divorce decree. So for my sister to be there for both of our kids being born, she wanted to go to court to take her off of the guardianship. So, but my sister still send the kids gifts and videos and all of that stuff. Just like their auntie should. So my village has been my family and raising my kids.
Wow. I love it. Marty, I'm going to let you go to the questions that we have from the audience, but I want to take a moment. I want to just acknowledge you too. I hadn't been there in quite a long time. My son is now 25, but after the divorce and the first marriage, I was so fortunate to have the most amazing wife ever. And even it was seamless. I didn't experience an ounce of what it is that you all have experienced. But I want to take a moment to acknowledge you publicly and to just kind of shine a light on your resiliency, to continue to show up in the lives of your children. And what my hope is that someone is watching this and someone is listening to know that it's possible, right? That it would speak to a father who may come across this now or later, and it may just challenge you, right? To realize that there are seed out there, that there are children out there, and they don't want a perfect daddy. They just want a daddy.
Yes.
So I salute you both for your resiliency and your determination of continuing to show up for your seed and your legacy. And so I'm a pivot so that we don't all be up here crying. But I think this is rare. I think it's rare. This is not a story that you hear often, right? We hear the inverse of this. But to see fathers just press through and show up no matter what is a big, big, big deal. So kudos to you both. Marty, we got some questions here.
We do.
One of them I wanna speak to because
yes. And I agree, Thomas. I salute you as well. You know, the thing that often goes unnoticed or even uncelebrated are we fathers who do truly love our children and will go to hell and back for them, because we realize it's not about us, but it's all about them. So amen. Okay, what advice do you have for people whose fathers have passed away? So anything, you know, my advice definitely is during this time. I've spoken to several. This week has been a week of preparing fathers for and men for Father's Day. You know, I think the two holidays, Mother's Day is celebrated one way, but Father's Day is definitely celebrated totally differently in our society. And I always like to say this, you know, to reflect on the good, even though it's difficult, even though it can be difficult, even though it can be a struggle. I believe that we have an opportunity. You know, our father's DNA runs in us, whether we want it to or not. And I get the choice of choosing what qualities I want to highlight in my own life about my father. And it's been no secret about my relationship with my father was very tumultuous, and that I grew up in a domestic violent household. So there were many times that I absolutely, and I can say this, hated my father. And the more I hated him, I realized I was not just hating him, I was hating myself. And I had to get past that. So some ways that for those who have lost their fathers, my father is now deceased, but we were able to reconcile before he passed away. I now try to reflect on the qualities that I loved best about him. My father actually was a pretty brilliant businessman who could have been one of the first Black millionaires in our little small town in Ohio. Just did not know how to manage money, but he was brilliant. So I like to John Henry say that part of my love for being a business owner is because that's what my father placed inside of me. So I try to reflect back and say, you know what, Dad, thank you for that. Mm-hmm. And whether it's writing a letter, whether it's sending maybe a balloon off to them or something, writing a poem or spending, doing something that they like doing, cooking their favorite meal, eating their favorite dessert, listening to their favorite song, whatever that might do, that might bring you hope, joy, and peace during this time. That's my recommendation. John Henry or Thomas, any other suggestions that you all might have?
I'll jump on there as my father passed away. There's another question. Can you put that on the screen, Daryl? I wanted to speak to. It was how are you mentally preparing yourself for your first Father's Day without your dad? The first one was the hardest for me. The first Father's Day without my father was actually last year. And so just to put context around this is my father was in and out of my life. I hadn't spoken to him for many years prior to 2019. I, like many men who kind of grew up with an absent father, had anger, had unforgiveness, had bitterness, had all of these negative feelings towards my father up until the moment of reconciliation. It was September in 2019 when I just felt the Holy Spirit leading me to reach out to my father. So I get on Google, I search my name, very common name. I get one number, it's not the right number. I get another number, I call it, and my granny picks up. And I was shocked. And my granny says to me, now, granted, I'm angry all of these years, hadn't spoken to him in 10 years. The last thing that I spoke to him was, "You're lying. I would rather not even try to reconcile this relationship. You live your life and I live mine." And I'm finding that was the last thing prior to 2019. 2019, I felt the need to find him because what I was hoping was to hear him say, "I'm sorry." I just wanted him to say, "I'm sorry." And please forgive me, right? That's what I wanted to hear him. But upon finding him, I found out that he had had a stroke and he could not speak, and he was paralyzed on the left side of his body. And at that moment, I had a decision that I had to make. And it ties into what you were saying, Marty, was whether I was going to live with that pain and that anger and that unforgiveness, or whether I was going to go and pursue forgiveness and reconciliation. And so it made no sense naturally in my mind, because all of these things was like, why am I going to spend my money to fly across country and go after you when you're the one who's the cause of a lot of the trauma in my life? That's how I felt. Flew across the country. I walked in the room and I saw my father. But from the point of leaving Georgia and walking into the room in October the 10th, 2019, the day after my birthday, something had changed in my heart. And I walked in that room and I looked at him and I said, "I am your son. I'm not mad and I love you." And he was there. And although he couldn't speak, I wept and he wept. And words were not necessary because I could feel in the way where he took the good part of his body and he kind of grabbed me and he pulled me up. And I was weeping and he took his good arm and he wiped my tears away. And he tried with everything that he could. And my daddy was like, "I love you." I could hear it in my mind over and over and over again. And at that point, I wept like a baby and nothing mattered. Nothing mattered. My heart was then open to have empathy and compassion for him. So all these years I was upset thinking, "You left. Why did you leave?" None of those questions mattered. Just in that moment is that I was John Henry Scott III.
Yes.
John Henry Scott III. So if you fast forward 3 months after that moment, my father passed away. But leading up to him passing away, I had the responsibility of making the decision to take him off of a machine. And that was the weight that I wish nobody to have to bear that weight. So here it is. 6 months ago, I didn't care about this man. And here it is. I'm deeply in love with him. And how long he lives is on me because I am his namesake. And I am the firstborn. And the responsibility is on me. And I went there and my granny would tell me that, "John Henry, your daddy don't want to live on a machine." There was nothing more the doctors could do. So I flew to California and I made a decision that I was going to honor him in his death. And so I signed the paperwork, hardest decisions. I remember walking in Ontario to the hospital and said, "Take him off the machine," because the dialysis was doing too much to his body. And I just wanted him to be at ease. And they had him take the machine off and they got my dad comfortable. They removed the breathing tube from him and I held his hand. And in those moments, I would whisper in his ear, "Daddy, I'm here. I'm here. It is where I forgive you. It's good." I wish that I had more time with my daddy. I didn't know that I would be able to fall in love with him. In that moment, the power of forgiveness was so strong because I forgot all about the pain and things that I felt all I remember is that this is my daddy, and I'm going to hold his hand until he leaves this earth. And I would wipe his hair, sweating, and he seemed at such peace. He had to know, and the doctors would say, talk to him. He can hear you. The hearing is the last thing to go. And I would talk to him, and although he couldn't talk back, me talking to him and letting him know that I am here, that I forgive you, and that I love you. You would have thought, if you watched that he had been the perfect daddy at every debate team, at every graduation, at my wedding, at every, you would have thought, because that is how I felt. And so I said all that to paint the picture to get to Paula's question, is that last year was the first year without my dad. It was the first year that I ever cared about Father's Day, and he wasn't here. And it was hard for me. I hid and I cried, but I allowed myself to feel.
It. Yes.
And what I felt was not the pain, but to your point, Marty, I felt the goodness of that moment. Those final 3 days when I held his hand, when I looked at him, and in looking at him, I saw me. And I hear his voice over and over, and I feel his hand sometimes wiping the tears from my eyes. And so I made a promise to my dad the last moment before he passed away. And I told him, I said, Daddy, everything that you didn't get done in the earth, I'm going to make sure that I get done. And I'm going to make sure that our name is good in the earth. And so the question was, what I do to prepare myself this year? What I did was I just remembered my commitment to my daddy, you know, and I just believed that had he known that this would be the outcome, that he would not have probably behaved the way that he did behave, you know. But then I understand that he just probably didn't know no better.
He didn't know.
He had no example. He didn't know any better. So what compassion does is it allows us to forgive. And so I prepared this year thinking about that beautiful moment of holding the responsibility of ensuring that he transitions well, when I stood to eulogize him and paint the picture as if he was a hero, because in my mind, he was my hero. He wasn't perfect, but he was my daddy. And I, this year, to keep myself from really losing it, all I thought about was, I'm going to show up, and I'm doing this for his namesake. I am John Henry Scott III. I am John Henry Scott III, you know. And so what I do is I remember those beautiful moments, but I also remember that I have a responsibility, that I promised him that I would make our name good, and that there will come a day where this life is temporary, and that we will rejoice again in eternity. And in eternity, we will laugh. We won't discuss any of the pain. None of that will matter. And so that's how I deal with Father's Day, when I miss him dearly, and I wish he was around to see his grandkids and tell them all about my business and about the church and things like that. But I just believe, and my hope is that there will be a day in heaven where we are sitting down, eating banana pudding and drinking black coffee, and I can tell him about everything. So I focus on eternity. That's my answer to Paula's question.
And all that comes to mind is, now abideth faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. And love conquers all. And I think that's what you've heard us here say tonight.
Yes.
You know, we push everything. We are compelled because of love. That Thomas can drive 8-9 hours because of love. That John Henry can forgive because of love. And John Henry, and Thomas, I said it this way. I was talking to one of my clients yesterday. I said, you know, isn't it apropos that the first national recognition of Juneteenth is the day before Father's Day? And that although it represents a day of freedom, And what I heard you say, John, was what I told my patient. I said, give your father the gift of releasing him from the guilt, but more importantly, give yourself the gift of forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And that's just the gift of love, because we too have been shackled far too long. And I love to say it this way, secretly suffering in the shadow of shame. But because you spoke up, because you spoke out, now you have released not only yourself, but your children, the power to live and to love. Woo! Okay, now this show, y'all have messed us all up today. Portia, don't you do this no more. We got a professional company to run here today. But listen, John Henry, thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability. Thomas, oh my God, thank you for your vulnerability. I don't know how to close at this point in time. But again, any last words? Because this hour has gone by so fast. And Portia, we want her to be able to trust we, the men folk, in running her Portia Scott ministry and media is all that. With that, Thomas, my God, this is the first time we've met virtually, but I can't wait to meet you in person, to have some of those cookies as you're about to blow up and take Mrs. Fields and everyone else on and make them take them by storm. How do we get hold of you, man? And how do our listeners follow you so they can see the great work you are doing as a father?
I have my Facebook. It's just Thomas Shipp. You can just follow me on there. I have like 4 Instagrams for Thomas Photography Studios. I have TP Eats, where I like to mix and match up food. You see my cookbook back there in the back.
Yes, sir.
I just want to just point that out a little bit, you know.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I will have cookies coming out in the fall. This is my
woo. Come on.
This is it. I'll be coming out in the fall. Thank y'all for having me. So you want to reach out to me is shipthomasp@gmail.com. My other email is cookiesandship@gmail.com. Thank y'all for having me, and this was probably an excellent show, and I really do love this show, especially last week when we found out how Marty got into being a professional health counselor. It was because the money didn't reside in the college, and he had to leave school. The money didn't reside with Marty at that time, but hey, this is even better.
Yes, man. Thank you so much. Love the vision. Listen, John Henry Scott had the mistake of letting me taste your cookies. Now, man, I didn't want to be rude, but I was about to fight everyone up in that piece to take the rest of those leftover cookies. But now I get to place my own order with you and everything as well, man. Thank you so much. You know, John Henry Scott, we already know about you and all your amazing work, but remind us about Chart to Heart, my executive coach himself, John Henry Scott III.
Yeah, you all can reach out to me. Just go check out my website, www.chart2heart, and you can learn all about what I do through my company. It's a coaching firm, right? We do executive coaching, we do one-on-one coaching, team coaching, and then we do a really fantastic, probably one of my favorite things to do, a 2-day transformation event. I'm Marty, and this company, I've been through one of them and seen them in different segments. And so we're a mission-driven company, and looking forward to partnering with companies and individuals who are ready for what it is that they desire to do to go to the next level. So you can either email us at connect@chart2heart, but it's easier just to go to our website and you can find everything there. Also have a podcast called the Chart to Heart Podcast, and you can check that out as well.
Yes, love it. That's right. I can be a personal witness to the power of Chart to Heart, as he's not only changed the way that we even think and do business. I can't even imagine doing business without him, because I know we would have imploded had it not been for John Henry Scott and Chart to Heart. I'm just a part of the Scott family. Listen, Thomas, I'm about to be a part of your family too. So I'm just a Shipp and Scott family member with that. And without any further ado, listen, let's bring Portia Scott back to the stage on her own show, as she is going to close us out with her normal mantra. We could not do it without her. So Portia, you got me up here crying and everything.
Listen, I was listening. I had me a piece of fish. I had me a little glass of wine. I ain't gonna lie. And I was listening and I was in tears the whole time. And all I can say is yes. I trust you guys with this show. You did a phenomenal job. And I am so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you for taking the time out on Father's Day to be with us, to take out an hour of your Father's Day. It is not lost on us. And I think one of the things that I always think about is that Father's Day, you said it best, Marty. Mother's Day is celebrated in one way and Father's Day is celebrated in another. And the thing that I even thought about as Thomas was talking, as you were talking, as John Henry was talking about showing up, is that sometimes we don't know how. And
Right.
So you guys doing this show, my hope, my prayer is that this would help somebody know how. It would give them one or two tools to keep going, to keep trying, to have this exposure that the impossible can be done. And even if it's an impossible situation, that they can find peace, that they can find forgiveness, and that they can find hope. So you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for our community, for just all of your engagement, all of your questions. You guys know I love you so much. As we talked about at the beginning of the show, you are the reason why we do what we do. You are helping us to make an impact. Literally, listen, all over the world, from here to South Africa, we are impacting lives, and we are going to do so much more. You guys know we don't leave or end any episode without this declaration. Waking up is automatic. Showing up is intentional. Today
I will show up.
See you next week.